Right. Hello, everybody. Amazing, it's worked. First of all, very, very warm welcome to both you here, especially for taking the trouble to get here. And I think you're going to have a fantastic day. And also, we've got over 100 people online as well. And we're hoping that this will be the future way that we will operate, given the sort of problems with COVID. So I'm hoping it's going to be really useful. And you can see we've got some people from the international world as well, so a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm going to go through some housekeeping quickly first, before we then have our AGM, and then we'll start the conference, which Rachael will introduce. Housekeeping, I think you all know where the facilities are, so they're out of that door straight there, as are the emergency exits. Okay, they're all signed with those green signs. Can I just check that you've turned your phones off, please, mobile phones? What we've got to remember here, that everything we do, and if we make a lot of noise, all our audience online will hear it as well. So we just have to be careful. If you need any comfort breaks, then please, of course, get up any time. Just be conscious that there's cameras rolling, so if you can sort of duck, then you won't end up on the picture. But don't worry too much. This is a very informal, this is our society, it's our friendly sort of meeting. And again, you've seen coffee and tea and stuff, and they're outside as well. And for lunch, that's on the far side of this top floor. So everything's on the top floor, basically. There are no fire drills planned. And that's everything else. Well done, Gemma. Very efficient. Talking of filming, if any of you don't want to be pictured, because we will take some pictures, make sure you've mentioned that to Gemma, but I don't think any of you have, so that's absolutely fine. And as I mentioned, if you're moving around, just be conscious that you might be. And as it's live streamed, everything that we say, hopefully the audience will hear us. This is the programme. I won't dwell on it. It's on your tables, and there's other bits of information on your tables, and those online, again, you can see this, and you were sent it out in the link beforehand as well. So we have our AGM, and then we have a break, and then we start the conference with Professor Frida Fortune and her team from the London BEHÇET'S Centre of Excellence. And then that follows on in the afternoon after lunch, with a second series of presentations and lectures, and then finally another break. And then we go into the final part of the conference, which is the BEHÇET'S Patient Services, and that's going to come back with feedback that they've gained throughout the day. Hopefully John Mather's managing that. Medical compliance, you see there, Dr. Sarah Sakur doing, and then we have the very popular question and answer session. And for those online, we will try to answer questions from you. And if we don't answer any of them today, then what we will try to do is get back to you with them. We haven't got as many clinicians online as we have in the last 2 years, so just bear with us with that one. Thank you for those who've given us questions beforehand. That makes life easier for us. Again, there's forms on your desk, so if you prefer not to speak up and say it, do drop it in the box. Where's the box, Gemma? Right at the back. Well done. Oh, yeah, Alan's got that. And then we can collate them and hopefully make sort of sense of them. And those will all be fielded by Professor Fortune and her team. Q&A protocol is really important because we're online as well. That if you've got a question, you put your hand up, please wait for the microphone to come to you. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear what's going on. I now ask Baroness Ritchie to open our conference and AGM.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I take this opportunity to offer everyone a very warm welcome to the 2022 BEHÇET'S UK Conference and AGM, which, as we are witnessing, is a hybrid event. This is the first occasion the Society has organised both an in-person meeting whilst concurrently live streaming, and it is likely to be the format used in the future, enabling wider audience participation, particularly catering for those who may have difficulty travelling due to health reasons, not to mention expense. The proceedings are also being recorded so that you can review at a later date. and at your own convenience. On your behalf, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Fortune and the staff that support the London Behçet's Syndrome Centre of Excellence for sponsoring this year's conference. I would also like to thank our trustees, including Tony Thornburn, for their time and continued enduring support to members, without which the Society could not, of course, function. So, ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for your attention, and I wish you all a most enjoyable and informative day. And I look forward to the outcomes from today's conference, because such outcomes will help inform politicians about the way forward and how members of the House of Commons and the House of Lords can exert better outcomes for all of you.
We're very lucky to have Baroness supporting us because there's a lot, as you realise, that goes on at a political level that then drives the agenda with the NHS and the UK Rare Disease Strategy, the one in Wales, the one in Scotland and the one in Northern Ireland. So we're very grateful for her support, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'll start off the annual general meeting. And again, you've got the programme here. So I'll give a quick, hopefully 5 minutes. We'll keep to time. And then Alan will give us our financial update. Then we have a session from Neil, fundraising. We then have 2 awards, okay, the Judith Buckle Award and a new award, the Members Award, for the first time. And then Rachel will go through the Brief Creative Project, which she's been helping manage. And then we'll have time for questions, hopefully, if you've got any at the end. Now, you'll have seen, some of you, but if not, please look on the online. We've got our annual report done, just come out, and there's a lot of detail in there of all the background activities and stuff that's been going on. So I would ask you all to read that. Because there's much useful information in there. And I'm just going to give a very quick overview. I'm not going to dwell on any points. I hope my slides aren't too busy. But I just want to get you the flavour of what's going on, because it takes a long time to do stuff in the medical area, as I'm sure you'll realise. And there's lots of keys and hooks and things you've got to get in place to get things sorted out well. And we're just building on the success that the Society has had since it started in those early days. First thing, buying a wheelchair, it's amazing. So as the Baroness said, very grateful to the trustees for doing all that they have done, and without them, really, we wouldn't achieve anything. I'd particularly like to thank Alan, as he's coming up here getting ready, for managing the accounts. It's the one area I've said before I have no worries about at all. He keeps us in line, makes we do everything absolutely properly according to the Charity Commission. So it's fantastic. And then, of course, our supporting team, Gemma, Deborah and Claire, who do an amazing job and a lot of work behind the scenes. And in the last newsletter, you'll have seen Claire Griffiths' fantastic summary of the last international conference, which was held in Athens. So in my report, you'll see that basically I summarised by saying we've had a fantastic year, reflected really in all the articles we have in the newsletter. These are jointly put together by ourselves, the BEHÇET'S Patient Centre, Jan Mather's team, and I'm grateful to all the members who send in articles. They're positive articles, basically showing you're not going to be dominated by BEHÇET'S. And it's a really important aspect, particularly for those who've just been diagnosed, because it's a very worrying period, as I'm sure you've all gone through yourselves. So thank you for that. Research large looms, and I'll just put a couple of slides to summarise those. Fundraising has just been amazing again this year. Again, it's all you, the members, who've been doing this for us. Now we have plans to raise further funds, and you'll be briefed on that later. And in summary, there's lots of activity going on in the background to raise the visibility of the Society. We're working closely with the BEHÇET'S Patient Centre and, of course, our medical advisory panel. And we're actually updating the fact sheets this year. I'm trying to get them updated every 2 years. The reality is much of the medical information doesn't change because it's quite a gradual process for BEHÇET'S. But it is important that we keep them updated just for perception, if no other reason. We continue to input into the UK Rare Disease Strategy, which includes, as I mentioned, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. And it is very important, therefore, having somebody like Baroness Margaret working in the background with that. When I ask members to get involved in sort of political lobbying with your MPs and people like that, please do so, because it is important. Other societies do that, and that's how they gain more recognition, gain more support. So it's an important aspect. I want to thank yet again our fantastic supporters who run our focal groups, face groups and things like that. And you can see there Claire, Yvonne, Catherine, Rachel, Funila and Amanda. So thank you again, and most important piece of work. The major issues coming on now looking forward is getting a constituent management system, and that's to help Gemma and Deborah really manage the membership and all that goes with it and the accounts efficiently. And that will make a major improvement. It'll also ensure that our body of knowledge is kept and doesn't fall through the gap when people change over. We're looking to improve the outcomes of people in the devolved nations for the patients and the members there. And the other initiative that's going to come to fruition next year is the British Society of Rheumatology and the Association of Dermatology guideline. And that's important because that's just a guidance that rheumatologists and dermatologists have to treat patients. And then what you can do after that is audit against them to make sure that patients are getting the right treatment. So they're an important aspect. And whilst there's a EULA guideline for Europe, that's fine. It's an international one, so that's most useful. But this is very much local to the UK, and it's beholden basically on the UK clinicians to abide by it. So that's going to be very important. And I'll mention the patient registry later. So I just flag up the two major studies that's gone on, BEHÇET'S, which have been going on for a year, with the 3 centres and Professor Moots heading it up. And he's managed to secure, as you can see there, 700,000 for a trial in secukinumab, I can't even pronounce the word, basically another biologic. And that's really very useful. And then Professor Fortune will mention all the research she's been doing in her bit, so I won't cover those, but you'll see the 7 posters that we put on the doors, so please look at those. 2 final bits of research. The retrospective study that Dr. Priyanka Chandrat is doing, that is absolutely fundamental. It is collecting the data from the 3 centres and also the hospital episode data that's collected around the country when any BEHÇET'S patients goes in there, whether registered with a centre or not. And that will then ultimately feed into a patient registry, and then we'll start to make headway. And if you look at any conditions that really move forward from cancer to cystic fibrosis to whatever, actually what they start with is a patient registry. And that then farmers can use, researchers can use, and it gives evidence to what you're all going through. So it's really important. And yes, and eventually it'll lead on to things like natural history study, and we'll get into the genomic space as well, so genomic medicine. And the final one I'll put up here is monogenic mimics. This is a study that Alice Burley did under Professor Paul Brogan up at Gosh, Great Ormond Street Hospital, looking at mimics of BEHÇET'S, and that will help with the identification of the diagnostic odyssey that everyone seems to go through with BEHÇET'S. So I think that's going to be an important aspect, and hopefully will be brought into routine care. The final thing I want to say is the Families' Day. We had a fantastic day. I always forget where it is. Underbanks. It was Underbanks. And these are important occasions for people like yourselves to get together, and everyone who goes to them has a fantastic time. And we're looking to see whether or not we can actually also roll this out up in Scotland and in Wales and in Northern Ireland. So we're going to email the membership in those areas to say, if we lay something on, will you do it? They do cost a lot of money. They're your money. It's a society's money, but they're important events. And I don't know if any of you in here went along to the last one, but I did, a number of the staff did, and everyone had a fantastic time. So I would encourage people to do that. Bring the children along. You know, it's a fantastic day. Okay, I probably overrun a bit, but I think it's time for Alan.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's very, very nice to see so many here and to know that there are others watching online. I am going to speak briefly about the pounds and the pence. And for those who are really interested in that sort of thing, the full gory detail of our accounts may be obtained from my table at the back. But I would much rather say something more about ourselves, our members. If I can get the right key to make it work. That one. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a brief membership report. And the first thing to say is that our numbers are continuing to go up. You might not realise it from being in this small room that there are over 1,200 members of the society. That number has increased each year for quite a few years. Now, what is a standard member, or full member if you like? That's someone who is entitled to have a welcome pack, including a BEHÇET'S alert card, to get quarterly newsletters by email or post if you prefer, access to our helpline, which is extremely useful to those who use it, participating in local support groups or Zoom meetings. Family days have already been mentioned, free day at the conference, which you are enjoying at the moment. And if we ever have any resolutions, you can vote on them, but there aren't any today. So that's what being a full member is. Now, when I last counted, we had 1,236 standard members, but we also have an increasing number of under 18s who are technically not full members, but who we call junior members. We have associates who are largely medical professionals and staff who work with the society and its research. A number of people who give money but don't actually want to be members. And there are a few who haven't paid up yet. And I do have a table at the back and can take money, but I'm afraid it's only real cash at the moment. We'll try and do credit things next year. But you can fill in a form to pay direct debit. So that's who we are. Nearly all patients, though there are some who are not yet diagnosed. There are others like myself who are supporters, but not patients. Some who care for patients and medical staff, and a few overseas. That's who we are. We don't get any older. That's the good news. We tend to be predominantly between 40 and 60, some younger, some older. The average age has stayed exactly the same for the last 5 years. I find that very encouraging. Most of us live in England. That's not surprising. It's the largest part in the United Kingdom, but we also have representation in the other home nations, 3 from the Channel Islands, and as you've already seen, 20 overseas. So that's where we are. And for the 12th year in a row, we are not increasing the subscription. Who else could say that? But we have increased what we're able to do by way of grants, which would be typically up to £500 for certain specified purposes. It can be up to £1,000 if the trustees agree. And that's one of the things we're particularly keen to increase in these times of financial difficulty. So, a few words about the pounds and pence. Where does our money come from? Not a penny comes from the government or local authorities or the National Health Service. More than half comes from the subscriptions and donations of our members. The next largest part is from fundraising. Then gift aid. Now, if you are a member, have paid, but have not gift aided your subscription, we can get 25% off HM revenue and customs at no cost to you. We have a little form at the back. Please don't forget to do that. Sometimes we get money left to us in wills. And you'll see in a moment that has been very significant recently. It wasn't in the last financial year, but it was in the 2 before that. Note at the bottom, our total income last year, just over £55,000. Now, where does it go? Well, we have 2 wonderful members of staff. We have to pay them for their part-time work. The next most expensive thing is patient information and newsletter costs. Then the annual conference itself costs money, of course, and the charitable grants. As I say, we'd like to make that a larger slice of the pie. But if you remember the previous number, the one at the bottom of this is 62,000, which is larger than the first one. So we made an operating deficit last year. Are we worried about that? No, because if you look at our balances, each year on this blue line, you'll see that between 2018-19, when they were beginning to look a bit low, they suddenly shot up. One person left us 1/3 of her estate in her will, and that was worth £155,000. Made enormous difference, I should say, to what the society is able to do. But the line has started to come down because we are exceeding in our expenditure what we are getting in normal circumstances. So what we would like to do ideally, the trustees' policy, is to keep the balances between these two lines, which represent 12 months normal income and 6 months normal income. So when it goes above what's now the middle of those lines, that's when we think we ought to do something about it. We have some plans at the moment to do two quite expensive things. One is to work on establishing a national registry of patients to promote research, and the other is to establish a specialist nurse in Scotland initially, because the BEHÇET'S patient centres work is entirely limited to England, and we want to go to the other parts of the United Kingdom and what we can do to support patients. Both of these things would cost more than the money we've got in total. So that's why we don't want to stop fundraising. But that's the balances. We also have a research fund. Occasionally, somebody makes a significant donation towards research. As you can see, that happened in 2019-20. We had one very generous donation. And with the research fund, what goes in tends to come out. So the expenditure almost matches the income on that. And we do have a small balance, only about 7,000 in our research fund at the moment. You can't get a lot of research for that. So again, more donations would be very welcome. At which point, I'd like to hand over to our latest new trustee, Neil Williams, who is going to talk about fundraising, which is his particular responsibility. Neil.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Great stuff. Obviously, this is my first introduction to everybody. I'd like to talk to you all about fundraising, which is part of my remit as a trustee. I'd like to start off by thanking everyone for the money that we've raised so far. There's been some amazing amounts that have come through from different people. There's been a lot of different activities that have taken place. And that has left us with, we've done BEHÇET'S to the beach. There's been individual people that's raised absolutely thousands of pounds. There's people that raised hundreds of pounds. As Alan's just shown there, we can see very clearly about how much this all really comes together. There's been nearly, I think it was £17,000 in total that's been raised in fundraising at the moment. We want this to keep going. Every little penny really does come together, and I think, 10 people that raise £10 all comes to £100, and then it snowballs from there, really. And we can see how the money we want to make is going to make a big difference, really. So how can we all help each other? People that haven't joined us, join us. The basic memberships, we can see that's a large part of the pie that comes through. Become a donor as well. Any donations that people want to make, we're more than happy to do that. Buy some merchandise. You can buy that off our website. There's people in the room if you want to buy stuff at the back of the room as well. There's stuff being sold here today. This all comes together. Shop through Amazon Smile. So there's when you go onto Amazon, if you like me, you spend far too much money at Amazon. Get some of that money to come back in charity. They give a donation to us if you shop through Amazon Smile and put BEHÇET'S UK as your chosen charity. And there's other shopping partners as well, such as Easy Fundraising, Give As You Live, eBay. There's lots of stuff on there that we can do. Fundraising events. Now, we have got some, I'll reach down here, we have got some material here that you can all take away from here. These are all at the back of the room that Alan's got, so you can take them away with you if you want to. Just please ask before you go, but they can help with your fundraising events, whatever they may be. There's lots of different people. People have been doing cycle rides, walks, bake sales, selling all different types of things. As I say, they all help through, but we have got that literature to help with. Donating on eBay as well. So if you want to sell any of your stuff on eBay and send that through to us, we're happy to do that. The weather lottery, I'm not sure if people are aware, but the money that's raised via the weather lottery will also come into BEHÇET'S UK as well. You can fundraise on Facebook. And then we do Christmas cards as well. They're for sale at the back of the room as well. So please feel free to get them. And then, as Alan's mentioned, you know, there's people that have left as part of a legacy. You can see a huge difference that goes and make really for us as a society. So next year, basically, BEHÇET'S UK are going to be 40 years young. We've been raising money since 1983. And it's been set up since then. So there's a couple of incentives that we're looking to do really. So 40 and 40. So what we're saying to people is over 40 days, you can run, walk, push, do whatever you want to do. You can do 40 miles, 40 kilometres. That's a bit of a challenge that we're asking for people to do. You can choose and set your own pace, whatever it is that you want to do there. If you want to do 10 miles every Saturday morning over 4 weeks, that's great. If you want to do 1 or 2 kilometres every day or two for the full 40 days, that's just as good. Whatever you want to do, that's a little incentive that we're looking to run. So there'll be more information that will come out over that about how you can sign up and get registered for that. But that's an incentive we're looking to run. There's also Life Begins at 40. So if you've got a bucket list, is there anything that you want to do? You want to tick something off that you feel that you've always wanted to. If you want to travel somewhere, if you want to, I don't know, jump out of a plane, whatever it is that you choose that you want to, that you've never done before, a bungee jump, you want to, join a choir, you want to be part of handmade crafts or, shares of subs to sales going, all that can come across to BEHÇET'S UK. And if you don't have a bucket list, yes, there's plenty of time to make one. Then Bake for BEHÇET'S, that's another scheme that we're looking to run as well. So get your family, friends, work colleagues, everyone. I think we'd look around here and I think most of us like a cake. I know I certainly do. So if someone's going to do that and bake a cake, I'll be more than happy to buy one. But you can get all your friends, everything, take them into work, take them to anyone that you seem that you do or you don't know. If you want to do an afternoon tea, get that done, get that raised. As I said to you there, if we all raise a couple of pounds on a bake sale and then we add it together, it's amazing how much that comes together quite quickly. So that's great. I think I'm missing a slide here actually, Gemma. Anyway, I'll ad-lib. One last thing I was just going to say to everyone was, I don't know if you all noticed in the summer newsletter, we've done a bit of a call to arms really, is that we're looking to get people to come and join together as part of a subcommittee, a fundraising committee. I've been looking to sort of champion some of the work that we're doing at the moment and ideas that we've got, and they've been mentioned about the patient registry and the work that we're looking to do up in Scotland as well. This just doesn't come cheap that we're looking to do. So we need to be going out there. We need to be doing fundraising. We need to be coming up with all different ideas. And I'm doing a huge call to arms to the membership. If anyone's got any ideas, I'm going to be here all day. So please grab me at any point if you want to, over a coffee outside or during lunch or at any point like that. But also, you can send me an email as well. I'm more than happy to arrange to have a call for anyone who's online, who's not here, who doesn't want to speak to me today. I'm looking for ideas off people. I'm looking for people that want to spend some time and happy to give some time and want to, help us join, come some ideas together, and we can create a way of creating more fundraising, really. So, if anyone's interested on doing that side, please reach out, give me a shout, and then I'll hand over to Rachael for the Judith Buckle Award. Thank you very much.
Okay, can everybody hear me as well? Yeah? Okay, so after 2 years of presenting this virtually, it gives me great pleasure to present the award in person on behalf of BEHÇET'S UK to Richard West. So Richard, I'm going to say something first, don't get up yet. I'm going to just do a little speech first, Richard. We need to. Not many people in the room might know all of the work that you've done. So when Richard was diagnosed with BEHÇET'S by Dr. Dorian Hascard, he reached out to the then BEHÇET Syndrome Society for support and advice. And like so many of us, he spoke to Georgina Seaman. And for the first time, he found someone who had so much insight and knowledge about BEHÇET'S that he no longer felt alone. And he wanted to do the same. And he wanted to make sure that BEHÇET'S disease, which was a disease he had never heard of prior to his diagnosis, became more widely known. In 2001, Richard joined the BEHÇET Syndrome Society as a trustee, while Ruth Pearce was chair. And over the last 20 years, he has dedicated a huge amount of his time, experience, and knowledge into raising the profile of BEHÇET'S, both in the UK and across Europe. He has been a trustee, secretary, and vice chair over the years and has always supported the vision of the charity. Richard is committed to making BEHÇET'S care better for others and has been driven in advocating for and representing the patient experience. Having BEHÇET'S himself, he understands the challenges and difficulties that BEHÇET'S can bring, and his insight into the patient's experience has driven his desire to improve care and treatment to all patients with BEHÇET'S in the UK. Keen to increase awareness of BEHÇET'S and network with other countries, he started attending JUDITH meetings and was nominated to be a patient representative. For 6 years, he travelled across Europe, raising the profile of BEHÇET'S and highlighting the need for specialist multidisciplinary care and treatment. He wanted the experience of BEHÇET'S to be heard, for people to know what it is, and for BEHÇET'S to be featured within the European medical field. He saw how powerful these meetings were, with healthcare professionals and patients across Europe meeting together, and the importance the patient voice can be in representing the truth of living with chronic ill health. He helped to oversee the BEHÇET'S patient online site for JUDITH, which is where people with BEHÇET'S across Europe could exchange experiences and connect with each other. As a result of his networking and volunteer work across Europe, he set up alongside Chris Phillips BEHÇET'S International. Richard was also pivotal in supporting the 14th International Conference on BEHÇET'S disease in London, where over 300 registrants from around the world attended over 2.5 days to share their expertise and knowledge. Alongside the professional conference, a separate BEHÇET'S disease patient conference was also held, of which Richard could be seen supporting, connecting, and signposting patients. He remained committed to supporting the International Society for BEHÇET'S disease, and in 2014 organised the patient-centred conference for the 16th International Conference on BEHÇET'S disease in Paris. In 2016, he was just one of 2 patients invited to work with the European League Against Rheumatism on the international recommendations for the management of BEHÇET'S, travelling to Zurich and ensuring that the patient voice was represented. He was also nominated to be one of 4 patient representatives for RITA, an organisation which aims to draw together expertise in the diagnosis, management and treatment of rare immunological disorders. Richard again travelled across Europe with RITA to raise awareness and represent the patient profile on BEHÇET'S. Richard's position with RITA would not have been possible without Professor Fortune and Professor Moot's position leading the mission to have BEHÇET'S recognised by RITA as one of the rare immunological disorders they covered. In 2019, Richard was awarded the JUDITH Black Pearl Award for outstanding efforts as a volunteer. With all the changes that have occurred with the UK leaving Europe, Richard did step down as a volunteer shortly after, but his work in Europe has had a tremendous impact on what has been achieved here in the UK. His volunteer work within Europe was leading him towards supporting the establishments of the Centres of Excellence that we know of today. Alongside Jan Mather, Richard was part of the driving force in raising the profile of BEHÇET'S and the need for patients to access specialist multidisciplinary care. Richard was convinced that funding was available for specialist centres to be set up, and he was right. Through NHS commissioning, they were able to access funding under specialised services, and he and Jan held meetings with leading healthcare professionals with a specialist interest in BEHÇET'S disease to gain their support. Now, you may be wondering where this drive for change and experience come from. When talking to Richard about his work, it was of no surprise to then hear that he was a detective inspector in CID and set up the first sexual and domestic abuse unit in Wiltshire. He was fully aware that the environment they were utilising was inadequate and unsuitable for victims of abuse, and provided a case to set up a new holistic unit. Communicating with various organisations, including the NSPCC and social services, they were the first unit to work collaboratively in supporting victims of abuse. Most recently, Richard has worked tirelessly into raising awareness of the inadequacies and failures within mental health services, and is always striving to protect those who are most vulnerable. As Richard says himself, he is always trying to make things better for others. He is described as having a heart of gold and is dedicated to helping others. Richard stepped down as trustee in 2020 so that he could spend more time with his family, but unsurprising, his work behind the scenes continues. He still talks about BEHÇET'S and the impact it has on physical and psychological health, and is also on the UK BEHÇET'S Guidelines Development Group, who are aiming to produce UK-wide guidance on the management, treatment and care of patients with BEHÇET'S. The online community that he set up with JUDITH is also still going strong. I know that today he will be chatting to patients, connecting them to others and signposting them, because you, me, us, the patient, is at the heart of all the work Richard has done. He just wants to make things better for us all. On behalf of BEHÇET'S UK, I know all staff from the Centres of Excellence and the patients that you represent and continue to represent. We thank you for all the work you have done over the last 20 years and the commitment you have shown to representing the patient voice and supporting change, not just in the UK, but across Europe, for supporting the Centres for Excellence and dedicating so much of your time to improving care for others. The Judith Buckle Award is awarded to Richard West.
Rachel, thank you very much for that lovely presentation. I had a speech ready for. I'm going to carry on for about another 15 minutes, but I think you've admirably summed up what I was going to say. I've always enjoyed really telling people about BEHÇET'S, because I think it's one thing that we can do is to try and share our experiences, because we've all been through it. It's always been a difficult journey for all of us. So I just wanted to say 2 or 3 things, the same as somebody else said about Georgina Seaman. She was the first person I really spoke to who had tremendous knowledge. So it was going back to 1995. And I think from there, it was Barry Seaman's idea that it would be really good to have a centre of excellence. That was always his wish. So I think that ought to be acknowledged. I think we're very lucky in quite a lot of the things that have happened to us, because we now got the centres. We actually have psychological support, which is really important, because a lot of other diseases have no psychological support at all. So we're really blessed to be able to have that. Also with the support workers who do a fantastic job. Again, you talk to other disease areas and they just don't exist in other fields of medicine. So I think we're really privileged to have centres of excellence, because in 1995 it was a postcode lottery. We were talking on our table earlier on, some of the medications we had. You know, it was a very trial and error. You were all guinea pigs because they didn't know what to give you. We've moved on fantastically, and the society has moved on fantastically. So I think the 3 things I have to say is always have hope, because it's really good to have hope. Keep positive, because it really helps with BEHÇET'S, and educate everyone you come into contact with about BEHÇET'S, because it really does help. And it's to help the next generation of people, because we had help coming through and we have to try and make it better for others that come after us. So thank you very much.
Right, this is a new initiative, the BEHÇET'S Members Award. And as you can read from there, it's for the contribution of an individual member who has been instrumental in supporting, improving the quality of life, independence and dignity of anyone in BEHÇET'S community. And as distinct from the award we've just awarded, which is Trustee Initiated Award, who see a lot of stuff that other membership don't, this is for the members, and specific guidance we put on the website for this. Now, as many of you know, Annette Robinson, a long-standing member of BEHÇET'S Society, sadly died unexpectedly on the 22nd of April this year. In accordance with her wishes, she had a private sort of funeral and ceremony. And whilst it was a little time before BEHÇET'S UK was formally notified, as happens in communities, often because assumptions are made on the passage of information, what soon became apparent was the spread and depth of feeling held by many whose lives were touched by Annette. And I thought I could do no better than reflect some of the descriptors that have been expressed to describe what Annette Robinson meant to so many people. And we're talking, for example, of over 400 people in the Face Group site, which Annette was responsible for setting up circa 2011. This was a private, restricted space where personal information could be shared on a one-to-one basis, a somewhat new innovation at the time. People take everything for granted now about that, but that wasn't the case then. Moreover, Annette ran the BEHÇET Syndrome Society London support group, which also and she also supported the East Anglian support group. And in addition, Annette was the founding trustee of KLS, Klein-Levin Syndrome Support UK, in 2011. So here are a few of those descriptors. Kind, funny, highly creative, multi-talented, could talk to anyone, reassuring, supportive, genuinely caring for others, wonderful support, a listening ear, fiercely loyal, particularly when people needed help. And it did indeed improve the quality of life, independence and dignity of many with BEHÇET'S, and indeed many other people. So on behalf of BEHÇET'S UK members, I'm honoured to present this award posthumously to Annette on its inaugural occasion, which will be kindly accepted by her husband, Brian Robinson. If you want to say anything, do.
Oh, no, yeah. I'll have to look this up. There's not much I want to say other than that Annette was very fond of her friends in the BEHÇET'S group. It meant a lot to her. It meant a lot to her to meet somebody who understood. I remember the first time she got to talk to somebody who had the same illness and what that meant to her. And it was because of that she was so passionate about helping anybody she could. And I know how much that dedication meant, because quite often I'd come home from work and she'd be in deep conversation on the phone or tapping away like crazy. And I knew for that moment I came second. And I know she would really, really be grateful for this. This would mean so much to her. Thank you.
Lovely. Fantastic. That's great. Right. Rachel, breathe creative.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about a little project that I have been involved in with quite a few people across the UK called the Breathe Creative Project. So Breathe Creative is actually a company who do creative work supporting people with ill health. So it's using arts to express how we feel, and then the end result is sort of an animation. So we invited BEHÇET'S UK members to register for this project to explore through the arts their lived experience of BEHÇET'S, with the end goal being an animated film based on their ideas and their work and their creativeness. So Breathe Creative is an organisation that supports health and well-being through the arts. So we had Katia Stiller, who was a therapeutic arts facilitator and trained counsellor, We had Jane Hubbard, who's a BAFTA award-winning animator, and we had a musician called Jacob. And we all worked together to create an animated film. We had a lot of interest. We had 24 people register that were members, and we had initially said just 12 places, but Katia was so keen for people to have the opportunity to experience using creative arts to support their well-being that she wanted to have all members, or all registered members, part of it. So we did split it into 2 groups. So it was a 10-week process. So we had each group would then had a dedicated 3 weeks to explore, reflect on their diagnosis, look at their well-being, have a safe space as well to talk about their experiences, but also to do creative writing, art, poetry, music, things like that. And then we came together as one group, as an editorial group almost, to look at producing some more artwork, working on the script, provide suggestions and have a chance to meet with the musician. So we use mindfulness techniques and emotional freedom therapies, that's things like tapping, to help us relax and focus, and also just to ground ourselves after what had been quite tricky weeks. We explored how we visualised our illness. So if we were to draw an ulcer, what would it look like? If we were to walk through treacle, what would that look like? What does Behçet's actually look like if you were to try and draw it? That's a challenge. We reflected on our diagnosis. So what does Behçet's actually bring to us when we think about it? How many words come from the word Behçet's? So we had things like pain. We had things like treatment. Lying down is not enough, I think we had once. We looked at where we go to find our strength and support and where we actually find our resilience. So it gave people a safe space to reflect on their experiences, and many hadn't had the opportunity to talk so openly and use arts as a form of expression. It was challenging at times to get that balance right, to give the space to talk, but also to be able to focus on that creative thing, because if they've had a bad week, all they want to talk about is the fact they've had a bad week. And then it becomes a bit more challenging then to try and zone that into something creative. Health impacted on people's ability to join sessions or to be able to fully participate in the sessions, and we had to be aware of that. We had to be sensitive to that. And some people needed time to process the creative session. It was sometimes a bit more of a challenge for them to be able to then do the creative work that was expected, and then that was encouraged to send to Katia afterwards so that they had that time after the session to process what was needed. And as is the case with Behçet's, the work had a darkness to it. So when we're talking about diagnosis, that's not an easy journey. When we're talking about how we live with Behçet's day to day, it's not always easy. And so to try and get that balance, to see the light and the dark, was quite tricky. But we also wanted to show that there is hope. Just because we have Behçet's, it doesn't mean it's the end. The initial script was very, very dark, and we weren't very happy with it. We had to work hard on it over 2 weeks to get the balance right. And then we used the work of Sarah Lynn. So she's an incredible artist. She uses charcoal-based art. It's very raw, it's very vulnerable. It's just the human form in it, all its nakedness. And it gave it a quality, I think, that because we all have that shame, I think, leading up to diagnosis, of having to reveal our bodies, having to show our bodies. And I think it shows that really well. So this is just some of the art that we used. This is Sarah Lynn's artwork. This was one of Sarah's. She just focused on the eye. This was some doodles from recordings. So we'd listen back to conversations we'd had, and while we were listening, we would be doodling, writing things down. We would then write poems. We'd draw pictures. We'd have keywords about how we feel about having Behçet's. And then we'd have some hope, because Behçet's isn't the end. We're not lying in bed dying. We are getting on with life as well. We do things, we bake, we do yoga, we meet up with friends. People were auditioning for Wicked. We had the gold silk thread that sort of intertwined everything. I am here to stay, says Behçet's. Where shall I leave my stuff? So we also did some audio recordings, so I'm going to play those for you now. They are about the diagnosis journey. They are quite raw. They are quite emotive. But I think they speak a truth.
I look in the mirror. I don't recognise myself. Who am I? What have I become? The person I was is gone. stripped of goals and ambition, fun and laughter. I miss her. I grieve for her. All that's left is an empty shell. No, not empty, it's full of something else. Of pain and sadness, of hospital appointments and doctors that don't listen, of medication and medication and medication, experiments that doctors don't quite understand and my body doesn't quite like. I'm confused, I'm embarrassed, I'm exhausted. My body is fighting me. It turns my guts inside out and upside down, challenging me not to have an accident at work or vomit on the bus. I fight it, I try my hardest, but I don't always win. My head is on a spin, spiraling through pain and darkness, squeezing and crushing. The pressure builds, I'm afraid it will pop. Ulcers that now define me, stop me from talking and eating and loving and conceiving. Burning, sweating, aching, shaking, cramping, nagging, shooting, stabbing, limping, resisting, exhausting. Why does my body hate me? What did I do? Will it ever like me again?
Diagnosis. The diagnostic odyssey. I am lost at sea, my small boat carrying me with the waves, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think of Odysseus, desperately trying to get home, obstacles at every turn. My home is different. I am seeking an answer. The answer is my end goal, my home. Time and time again, I wait for the answer. I am disappointed and alone. Last week, legs in stirrups, third time for me here. The pain is unbearable as they scrape swabs over the ulcers. Arching back, tears flowing, sweat pouring. When will this end? I am sinking. My boat is sinking. I am sinking. I need an answer. A shame of nakedness, of ulcers, of me, of my body, of what my body has on it. The shame is almost as painful as the ulcers, hidden deep. What is wrong with me? And then knowledge, the moment, the diagnosis. I think you have BEHÇET'S. Oh my goodness, the relief. The waves sweep over me gently, my small boat bobbing hopefully to the surface, me looking to the horizon. I am floating, but it is precarious. This is forever. BEHÇET'S is forever. The relief, and then the grief. My heart and body aching together, grieving together. A new life, a different life, a sick life, a life to live differently. On the horizon, I see the shore. So with all the art and the creative writing, that was all sort of drawn together by Jane, the animator, who came up with a film, which I'm now going to show you. We're very proud of it as a group. It is personal to us. So I hope you like it.
BEHÇET'S. They called it the Silk Road disease. It drags me into the eye of the storm, twisting and turning the threads into golden silk.
What is wrong with me? I question my sanity as the pain jumps around my body.
Doctors struggle to understand. Countless tests, procedures, appointments. And then they told me something that changed my life. It's BEHÇET'S disease. I didn't understand what they were telling me. Just give me some medication, some relief, a cure, and let me return to my life.
The fibres were bands of woven, knotted strands of pain, shame, rejection, guilt,
betraying abandonment.
I am in a fight with my own body. Every day, something new, something out of my control.
Fire inside, fire outside.
Examinations,
Shame of nakedness.
ulcers, resisting, confusion,
Flare up.
Vomiting, pain, embarrassment.
Relief, then grief.
Others cannot see my illness.
Hiding behind the mask. I come from a place where you muscle up and try harder.
There is strength in saying, I am not okay.
So, a life to live differently? And we do have a life. We are not our disease.
Our bodies have a different set of rules. We manage to work at our own pace.
We accept the simple things that BEHÇET'S can bring. When we can, we dance, we sing, we cycle, we run, and we stand strong against the BEHÇET'S rage.
We use our voices to inform everyone.
We are the experts. We know our limits. We are our lived experience.
We have a strength that no one can take away. We look for support from those who have already been on this road. Connected, we are no longer alone.
Our little film. So we do recognise there is a need for art and creativity, that we do need a different form of expression when it comes to managing chronic health. The mindfulness and emotional freedom therapy, it gave us so many tools. Oh, there's quite a few emotional people in the room. To reflect and relax. And we need a safe space to explore that. Our health and our way of well-being is interlinked, and the arts can really help us to express this. So this will be on the website with artwork that we've done, with the audios that we have. If you are creative, please do put some work out there, get it on the website. And when it does go out there, please do share it. Please do help to inform people about this disease, and that, we do still have a life despite BEHÇET'S. So that was our project. So we are going to move on now. Have we got time for questions? How are we doing?
I think probably best now just to carry on.
Yeah,
Jan and John.
that's fine, no problem. If you do have a question, just pop it on the slip on your table. So now I'm going to introduce John and Jean from the BEHÇET'S Patient Centres to present their work.
You're right. I think I've got another slide here. There we go. All nicely branded. So, thank you. It's lovely to be here again today and see so many people face to face. We are representing the BEHÇET'S Patient Support charity, Jean and myself. Jean, you'll know from being the coordinator down in London. Normally when we stand up and do the presentations here, we've got a raft of PowerPoint slides with lots of numbers. But we're going to do things a little bit different this year. So instead of me presenting to you what we've been doing, what we're going to do today is take the opportunity for you to feed back to us what we should be doing, how we can make things better for you as you live with BEHÇET'S. I want to share a little story with you. And this only came to me last night. I was thinking, how am I going to pitch what we want to do today? And I thought, football. Who doesn't like football? So my team has seen a few highs, but many, many, many lows. We now languish in the National League, but we've just been taken over by a local businessman He's not an oil sheik. He sells porter cabins. But at his very first press conference, once he'd taken over the club, he didn't promise us Lionel Messi. He didn't promise us, what's he called from Man City, Haaland. But what he did promise us was, I'm going to fix the ladies' toilets. Because what that man did in his period of putting together his bid for the club, he listened to the supporters. He queued with supporters. He could have gone into his private box and enjoyed his meat pie sausage rolls. But he decided, no, I'm going to go and stand in the turnstiles. I'm going to journey with the supporter. And I'm going to then listen to what the supporters are saying and then action what they want us to do. So we're still not going to get a Lionel Messi, but the toilets do now work. And the supporters now can get into the stadium through turnstiles that work. What we want to do today is just take the opportunity to take a little step back away from the day-to-day work we do in the centres. We need to recognise where we are with the centres. Richard, the words that you said about the centres were fantastic. We've come such a long way with the centres. When I first got involved with the patient support group, charity 10 years ago, the time to diagnosis for a patient was 12 years. With the work that's been going on behind the scenes, that's now down to 4 years. But we can't just stop. We need to just think about how we progress the centres. We need to make sure that we listen to you guys. We listen to how we can make your journey through the centres and through local care much better for you. So what I want us to do is just think, when you last made contact with one of your medics, whether that be at the centre or your GP or other consultants, what went well for you? What didn't go quite so well? And what can we do as a team BEHÇET'S, and I include the NHS and BEHÇET'S UK in that, how can we make things better? What can we do to make things better? I can't promise we're going to change the world, but what I can promise, we will listen and we'll put together a plan to try and make your journey through your medical diagnosis and aftercare that little bit easier. So what I want you to do is, obviously, if you're in Stevenage, come and talk to myself, Jean, Jan, Alan, Amanda, that are all representing BPC today. For those of you that are listening online, there's my email address. Send me any stories you want to share with us. And when we come back later on this afternoon, we'll just go through some of the themes that you want us to start thinking about and how we can make your lives a little bit easier as you go through your medical journey. Does that make sense? Cool. So we're going to be around all day. Come and share a coffee with us. Come and talk to us. And then we'll feedback later on what you want us to start working about. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time for a little break now. So we'll resume back here at 1:45. So just 10 minutes to just go and grab a coffee, have a comfort break. Obviously bring your coffees back in, but we'll see you back here at 1:45.